which is basically the crossbar where the laser is going to be assembled. That's going to be put on this. So again, we're going to take the last belt, line it across, and then attach one side, and then create the engine to put on, or the motor to put on the other side. There we go. So we attached one side, and the other one is still loose. So now we can go ahead and assemble the laser assembly itself. Okay, so the time has come to mount everything regarding the laser assembly together. So we're going to use the two last pieces of acrylic, the laser of course, its mounting screws, which are the two shortest screws. We're also going to need the motor, its 4 set screws, the 5 remaining wheels, and 10 spacers. We're going to use 5 of the longest ones and then 5 of the medium. These are the same diameter that we've already used on the sides. 5 more nuts, and then of course 5 bolts, and these are going to be the longest bolts because I have to go through all of this. So actually, let me do this. It'll make it a little easier. So the laser attaches to the one with the groove, the motor attaches to the one with the hole. So the first thing we'll do is take the motor and assemble that. And the way this is going to be is that it's actually going to be pointing or tapering down towards where you're engraving. So this is going to be the bottom. So again, I want this to be on the top. I actually prefer that due to my little mishap. So I'm going to align that upwards and then just take those 4 screws . Just like that. Next, we're going to do the laser. And on the back of it, you can see that it has a lot of different mounting accessories. We're going to use 2 of them. Basically, it'll be easier if I just do this and then show you. So there you go. So we're going to be using those mounting holes right there. And of course we want the laser pointing down. So we will put this on top, align the groove. And this is where having a magnetic one comes in super handy to align that properly. There we go. Now, of course, we do want this to be tight, but these screws are so small that they basically fill this gap. So if you over tighten it, you do run a risk of actually destroying that little groove there. So just like that, that's all we need for the time being there. Now, in order to mount the wheels, it's going to be a little different because basically we want the screws to come in this way, but we want all the accessories to be on this before we attach this to the top. Otherwise it's going to be really difficult to get in between this to put the wheels and everything. So this can be a little tricky. So we'll just have to put it up like that, I think. I think that's the best way to do it. So put all of these through. I'm gonna have 3 at the top and then 2 at the bottom. like so. Then we're going to use the smallest spacer, the same spacer that we used on the sides, because they have the same diameter as this little gear here. So in order for the wheels to align properly with the gear, we are going to use those washers right now. Then we're going to attach the wheels. Then we're going to do the slightly smaller, larger washers. Those on the side, like so. So the smallest washer closest to the motor, the longest washer towards the laser. Then we can line that up, have the laser on the outside, and push that through. Like that. We also want to double check that this gear is in line with the wheels. If they're not, then this is the moment where you would have to tighten that. And since I didn't tighten it in the beginning, I am going to see if it does need to be tightened. And it actually seems to be okay. And the alignment is good. Double check this. And yeah, that's fine. So that's perfect. So back to trying to set this up here. So I'll put some washer on these before we lose them. There we go. Now it'll be easier to align the rest. There we go. And of course we'll tighten all of these screws. There we go. So once everything's done, you should have something that looks like that. Connection going up, cords coming up, laser going down, and the gear being parallel to the wheels. And you might be able to see, but these are just slightly longer than the ones on the right. So now that we have that, we can attach it to the crossbar. So here we go. Slide that in, make a little fold here, and then feed this in. Let's see if we can fish that up. There we go. And over, and of course, to show you here, I'm just going over the gear, and then behind the wheel, and through the little groove here. There we go. And actually, I'm not too happy with that, so I'm going to release this a little bit. And just slow that out a little bit. There we go, that's much better. There we go. And then of course we're going to have to attach this side as well. Take another washer, put that over there, and then again we're going to pull on this to make it tight, slide a washer in, and wiggle it. There we go. There we go. That seems good. So we're gonna tighten that. Like so. So next we're going to attach the crossbeam to the other motors. So we're going to take this, and you have to decide which side is the front and which side is the back. So for me, this is going to be back, which means I want the laser facing that way. And then I'm going to mount it into these brackets with the remaining 4 screws. So we're just going to hold that back a little bit, and then just screw that in finger tight for the moment. Go over and do the same. Now we can go ahead and put in the last screws here. And then tighten these securely. Now the last is going to be to assemble the little power and the brains. Now, I suddenly realized that I didn't show you this because it doesn't come packaged like this. So you would have one piece of acrylic left over, and this is going to use 4 screws. They're fairly thin, and then 4 washers. Now these 4 washers are not like the others. These are smaller diameter, so it's really not that difficult to put this together. It'll line up with just one of the many mounting holes on the back. Just make sure that you do not tighten these screws too much, because this is a fragile motherboard. The same goes for the connections. When I first put it together, I actually pushed this power one a little too hard, and it actually skewed it a little bit. I didn't break it, but it was close. So just be careful. Now, that being said, we're going to go ahead and mount these. We're going to start with this one. So we're going to be using these little winged nuts. And we're just going to basically put one in there. One in about here-ish. It helps to put it in the correct way. And again, having a magnet on hand is very, very helpful. Just make sure that the beveled part goes in so that it's hard to explain, but basically you want these grooves to be out if you're using these. If you're just using nuts, depending on what came in your box, then you should be fine, but just make sure that the bevel are in and they will fit snugly like that. Then we're going to take the 2 Phillips screws to mount it with. And we want the connections to be facing up. Just like that. Now it doesn't matter where you put it. You can put it on top, on the bottom, wherever you want it to be. Just remember that there is a switch here that you will need to be able to get to. So at the bottom is probably not the best way to put that. Then we're going to install this, and it needs to connect right there. So we do want it to be close. So I'm just going to mount it here. In the official construction, it actually puts it on top. I don't really see a reason why, so I'll just put it on the side. To me, it just looks better. And then this time, we're going to use the 2 remaining hex bolts in order to attach this one. About there. This needs to be able to connect, so let's put a little closer. There we go. And then we'll screw that in place. There we go. Now all that's left is to connect everything. So we're going to start with this, and this is what confused me when I first put it together myself, is that it's actually longer than the connection housing. So it seems like it's not all the way down, but it is. So don't push too hard. Just be careful. Okay. Just like that. And that's all the way. Then we're going to take these 3. It's going to be 1 for each motor. Now, one thing to note about these cables is that they're a little different. One is a little bit wider, one is a little thinner, one has these little snap connections, and this one just has 2 rails. They only fit in one way, but basically the shorter of the 2 is going to go to the motor. Sorry. Shorter is going to go to the motor, and the longer one with the little snap connection, that's going to go to the brain here. And of course, here's another thing that's really confusing about this machine. You'd think that this would be right, this would be middle, this would be left, middle, and right. No, it's not. The way it actually is that the far left is the far right one. So that goes in there. Then the middle is actually the far right one. So that goes here. And finally, the far right one is the middle one. So that connects right there. Now I noticed that this cord was actually a little stiff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this exactly in the middle. But that's easy enough to do. So you might have to do the same depending on how yours fit together. So I guess I was wrong when I said that it didn't really matter where you put this, because obviously it does. So the center is the way to go, I think, because that'll give enough space for these. So about there. So that's all the pieces wired correctly. Now we just need to put the power and the USB in. So the power just plugs in right here, and then you just plug this into an outlet. Now you have the USB here, which attaches in this socket and then to your computer. So there you go. Hopefully this video was helpful to you figuring out how to assemble this contraption. If you did, please like, of course subscribe if you'd like to do that as well. Next video I'm going to show you how to set up the software. This was just the hardware part of it, and besides, it's really hot outside, so this needs to cool down before I want to put any power through that motherboard there. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.